Now, is it just me, or does the new DJI Mini 5 Pro look like a miniaturized version of the Air 3S? Well, that's because it kind of is. Now, this new Mini flying camera has had some major upgrades over its predecessor, the Mini 4 Pro, starting with this 1-inch CMOS sensor with 50 megapixels of resolution. And that's kind of like putting a V8 engine in a Vespa. Now, there is one thing that the Mini series of drones have always lacked compared to their bigger counterparts, the Air and Mavic lineup, and that is telephoto. That is now a thing of the past, with some clever processing algorithms introducing a 1-inch CMOS sensor onto the Mini 5 Pro facilitates a 2x zoom function with very little loss in 4K quality. And this kind of begs the question, why do we need those bigger, more expensive drones like the Air 3S and the flagship Mavic 4 Pro? And I'm struggling to find the answer because DJI might have just shot themselves in the foot. This new compact flying camera is so good that it just destroys previous versions of the Mini series and in many ways equals those flagship drones. Now, in a head-to-head with the Mini 4 Pro, there have been some big upgrades and some smaller ones, but in general, every aspect of this compact mini drone has been made better. Improved flight times, speed, wind resistance, which matches the Air 3S at 26.8 miles per hour. It's pretty windy today, so we'll be testing that out. Then we have upgrades in ActiveTrack 360, internal storage, effective pixels, frames per second, and of course some brand new features like that Medium Telephoto mode. LiDAR with nightscape obstacle avoidance, previously found only on the flagship Mavic 4 Pro. Here's one of my favorites, flexible gimbal rotation, enhanced portrait filming, and of course that enormous 50 megapixels of resolution, which matches the bigger, more expensive Air 3S. See, I told you, it was a miniaturized version. Even the quality of the footage somehow looks and feels very similar to the flagship Mavic 4 Pro. Okay, it might not be 6K, but the bigger CMOS sensors and rotating gimbals on both of these drones all contribute to that immersive cinematic footage. Now let's take a look at what everyone is talking about, this 48mm medium telephoto mode. Now this is not to be confused with the Air 3S and its dedicated 70mm lens. The Mini 5 Pro has just one lens, but it uses the power of this 1-inch sensor to create beautifully clean and sharp 48mm footage. Now, prior to this new Mini 5 Pro, I have never been impressed with any kind of digital zoom or crop on a drone. The footage just looks pixelated and a bit naff. Well, not anymore. We are going to have a wrestling match pitting the Mini 5 Pro against the DJI Flip. Both of these flying cameras have 4K quality resolution and the ability to punch in by a factor of ×2 to a focal equivalent of 48mm. Right, so here is the DJI Flip, pretty decent 4K footage on a par with the Mini 4 Pro. Punching in by ×2 to 48mm shows us some pretty grungy pixelated footage, not something that I would use on a professional shoot. Compared to the Mini 5 Pro shooting at 24mm, using the button on the screen to punch in by ×2, we now have 48mm and much cleaner, much sharper footage in that high resolution 4K quality. Pretty impressive. Now, one of the things I love about the new Medium Telephoto mode is that you can lock onto a human subject using ActiveTrack 360. Let's just draw a square around myself. And then you can tap the number 2 icon on the RC controller and it zooms in lovely and slowly. Just look at that, very cinematic, very sexy. Here are some examples of 24mm versus 48mm medium telephoto mode. Getting up close and personal without physically flying the drone there can be a big advantage, especially when the quality is this good. Now, if you cast your mind back to the DJI Air 2S, that camera had a 1-inch sensor as well, but was actually capable of producing a larger 5.4K resolution. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that the Mini 5 Pro is using oversampling to produce that amazing full 24mm footage, and then using the maximum amount of available pixels on the sensor with some clever algorithms to produce clean, sharp 48mm footage. Not only does this gimbal support native vertical shooting for your social media content, meaning that it captures the full 4K resolution in that 9:16 aspect ratio, we now also have 225-degree flexible gimbal rotation for rolling shots and of course those upward tilting shots that were available on the previous Mini 4 Pro. This kind of professional feature can emulate those cinematic clips you find in movies like Inception. Even in true vertical mode, we can still achieve that gimbal rotation in 4K quality HDR output. And because the Mini 5 Pro now uses what's called portrait optimization for better skin tones, brightness and contrast, these flying cameras are not just for landscape cinematography anymore. They can be genuinely used as a vlogging tool. It even works in medium telephoto mode. Right, so we're going to test out the ActiveTrack 360 with some running follow shots in 30, 60 and 120 frames per second, which is of course a new feature on the Mini 5 Pro. And I'm told it's 15 meters per second follow speed. Of course, I'm not going to run that fast, so we may have to test this in a car. Okay, let's get liftoff. Okay, so what we're going to do is draw a square around the person and we'll choose ActiveTrack, and that just dodged my camera. Thank you very much for that. And we're going to use this ActiveTrack wheel in the bottom left corner to choose our direction of follow, which is inner circle from behind, height set to 2 meters and follow distance at 4 meters. Filming in 30 frames per second, when the drone detects a change in human position, it will reposition itself to find the rear. Changing to a side view, it will accelerate into position. Choosing outer circle for a high and far position, the 5 Pro does a great job keeping the subject center frame at 60 frames per second. And the new professional slow motion 120 frames per second offers high quality cinematic footage. Right, so we're in the car, drone's in the air in the field just behind me. Let's select the car by drawing a square around it and we'll choose outer circle and right rear quarter. And let's see if it can keep up. Accelerating up to a steady 20 miles per hour, the Mini 5 Pro stays alongside comfortably. Pressing the number 2 on the controller engages medium telephoto mode without physically moving any closer to the car. This time choosing a front-facing follow shot, using inner circle for a closer position, the flying camera is able to stay ahead of the car while accelerating up to 30 miles per hour. Now, the previous version of the Mini series, the Mini 4 Pro, featured a full omnidirectional obstacle avoidance system with those fisheye lenses dotted around it, giving full coverage in flight. Well, the Mini 5 Pro has taken things one step further to ensure the safety of the drone itself and inexperienced pilots. Now, as well as these standard obstacle avoidance fisheye lenses mounted on the top here, we now have 2 new additions on the front just above the gimbal, and this is your LiDAR technology. So why do we need LiDAR and what's it for? Well, a few years back, drones were not that great at capturing footage in low light conditions because the sensors were too small and the dynamic range pretty pants. Consequently, nobody bothered flying them in the dark. The Mini 5 Pro now has a far superior sensor with 14 stops of dynamic range in HDR recording, so filming evening and night shots, even at ISO 800, we can achieve beautifully clean footage. However, we need a way to navigate home without hitting anything. LiDAR bounces pulses of light off of objects in the drone's path to map a 3D model of the environment around it. Used alongside ActiveTrack 360, it will navigate through tricky terrain, avoiding obstacles in much darker environments. The Mini 5 Pro can achieve this in near pitch black environments and make its way home with return to home. Right, so we're going to see exactly how good this 50 megapixel stills camera is for the professional photographer. We can shoot in either JPEG or RAW. I'm going to do both. This image was taken completely in automatic mode. Zooming into 100% shows the quality of this 1-inch sensor and 50 megapixel resolution. Taking a self-portrait atop a Filey Brig in North Yorkshire, again 100% showcases near perfect sharpness and clarity. Now, DJI call this flying camera the all-in-one solution with flagship image quality. A compact and EU certified C0 drone with all of the little stickers to prove it. Packed with features like 42 gigabytes of internal storage, just like its bigger brother, the Air 3S. And this for me is a big deal. Quicker file transfer speeds when you're plugged into your old Mac, and no fiddly micro SD cards. Result. Speed in sport mode has now had a boost in performance from 16 meters per second to 19 meters per second on the Mini 5 Pro. Something the size of a sandwich doing 42 miles per hour, can you imagine? Well, you don't have to.